Hi, my name is Gwendolyn Galsworth. Welcome to the second part of the X-Type Matrix briefing that I did with the Shingo Institute last November. This is the follow-up session for that, recorded on January 15th, 2021, and framed around the great questions and comments that you and folks like you emailed into us. We hope you enjoy this session and find it productive. Let the workplace speak.
The X-type matrix is for me one of the favorite tools in the array of constructs or formats that are used for visual leadership. Visual leadership is one component of the visual workplace. It really is a vast field, and as many of you know, I've been doing this for more than 35 years. I started in 1983. With Norman Bodek, and then started my own company because I wanted to go further, and he was perfectly happy with the way things were then. And I said, there's more, I have to find it. And I've been developing and codifying the field over this period of time. Visual leadership, I've been actively practicing for about 20 years, but the main area that people know me for is this first doorway for operator-led visuality, work that makes sense. We'll talk about that again in a moment. But I'm focusing today on the leadership doorway, which is doorway number 4. It has its own set of methodologies, its own set of outcomes. It is powerful, and the X-type matrix is right at the center of it. Robert, I should introduce Robert Nava, is our IT manager, and he is so helpful and knows about this. I know about visuality. He knows about the technical stuff. We make a good team. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for everybody.
You're welcome. Hello, everyone.
So operator-led visuality is the yellow book, and there's another book coming out and another and another. I want to mention something about operator-led visuality again. So I want to encourage you, if you want to learn more, one of the best systems that you can get, it's a complete online system that now has 12 modules. You can get it from the Shingo Prize, or you can get it from us. There are vignettes of each of the 12 modules on our website and on the Shingo website. It is the best system on the planet for bringing operators into a very robust visual contribution to performance, to making their cells self-teaching, self-explaining, self-regulating. I want to encourage you to just check it out. You can get the book, and the online system puts it on its feet. And of course, during COVID, it's a very, very good way to continue with your operators. But I also want to say, if you're a consultant or a CI specialist and you just want to know more, this system is fundamental to the expansion of your understanding. It gives you the building blocks of the thinking. I recommend it highly. It's taken me many, many years to develop. It's really, really good stuff. So please check it out. I also want to say, because there's been such a response to the X-type matrix with the Shingo Prize in November, that we are offering the three core Hoshin tools, which is the OSIT, the Operation Systems Improvement Template. It is the House of Toyota on its feet, walking and talking and helping you, not just sitting there looking pretty. I love the House of Toyota, but there's much, much more that construct should and must do. It is about setting the direction for progress, for process, and for culture. It happens there, number 1. The second set in the series is about this X-type matrix in action. This is about deciding and driving. It is a second tool for a reason, because leadership has to first know where it's going, and then the X-type will take you there. And the third is the roadmap. The roadmap is the way that you communicate that direction, that vision, and the action of the X-type in a very popular, easily understood language, department by department. We're going to be talking about the roadmap in a short while as I organized your question, I think I found two good ways to talk to you about it. But this is a series. It's going to be 5 sessions. It'll start in mid-February, the afternoon, an hour and a half. 5 sessions for each set. You can come and you'll get a seat for a buddy because you need to have someone to talk to about this. Cynthia, I'm sure you're talking to somebody about it, and you need a colleague. So we're giving you that as well. It's $750 each set. So you think about it, there's room for 5 participants and your buddy. And that's all we want to do that, okay? So that you'll have it in depth, you'll be given assignments. And if we have a popular response, fine, we'll do another set and another set and another set. But it's going to be very closely, it's called close hand coaching, even though it's going to be long distance. So I want you to know about that. Today's questions, these are from your comments. You will be able to get this presentation in black and white on our website. On the website, you'll see these little buttons over here. One is to get to our Work That Makes Sense online system. Another one is to get the guide. Well, right here is going to be a button where you can get this handout and other handouts, okay? Now, on to the X-Type today. Thank you for your questions. I made an amalgam of them, and I have 3 questions. So I kind of read them over, turned them over, thought about what the heck is this person driving at, what would help them, and I've organize this into 3 questions. Why do you put so much emphasis on the executive doing this work solo? In my company, we do everything in teams. That's our culture. That's the norm. Okay. Second thing that came up was I find the X-type matrix unwieldy. It's a struggle to complete. I like working with a hit list is so much easier, or some people said smoother, convenient, straightforward, uncomplicated. So we'll take that on today too. And the third was really some beautiful emails about I'm not an executive, I'm not even a manager. No one reports to me, but I want to get promoted. Can the X-type help me? So I'm going to attempt in the next 30, 40 minutes to address these questions, but I want you to please feel free to interrupt. Just turn on your mic and say, I got a question, okay? We only have an hour, now we have 40 minutes. And I hope that I'm covering the questions, but if you've got something burning or stay afterwards, I'll stay for as long as there are people here who have questions. Not a problem, it's Friday. Okay, so these are the 3 that I'm tackling today in my way. You may not, I hope my way is a useful way. This is the way that I figured out how to do it. How can I do this? So I want to repeat for you the 4 premises of visual leadership, because this is guiding my thinking. That effective leadership is not a gift. It isn't bestowed upon those special individuals with a charismatic personality and an expensive business school education. That is not the way we define leadership, or the way that leadership happens, the way that you develop those skills in yourself. It is, this is the second premise, a set of skills that can be cultivated, that can be learned through an array of visual concepts and constructs, these formats that I'm sharing with you. I'm sharing one in particular today that reflect the principles and practices of a system of thinking. It's called visual thinking, and it has very specific characteristics. I'll be teaching that online as well, I think with a group in Australia. We're talking about it now. We'll let you know about it. Maybe we'll do a US time zone version of it, where we go through this array. I'm very interested in your learning more. I know, it's important. Premise 3, these constructs are specifically designed to do this. This is what all visuality does, to embed vital information into the living landscape of work, the work environment that triggers core leadership behaviors. And those behaviors are deciding and driving. The way to summarize visual leadership is teaching leaders through visual formats how to do this. This is core. How to say yes to the few and wait to the many. That's the trick of executive leadership. How do I say yes to the few and know why, and say wait to the many and know why? How do I make that choice? It's not, that is the hard part of leading. And finally, visual leadership, like all of visuality, is about structure. It is about the power of limits. When we lay down borders and addresses in our visual where your, what some of you may call 5S, what we're laying down is the structure of work, the pattern of work. The mind is a pattern-seeking mechanism. The mind will automatically look for and respond to pattern as an orientation and as a knowledge base. And when we lay down those, not lines and labels, but borders and addresses, we lay down function, we lay down understanding. It's there because our mind understands pattern. And I'll show you some evidence of that in a short while as well. This is the architecture for behaviors. There's been so much discussion about OPEX, Shingo Prize, goodness being behavior-based. Yes, it is. And how do you bring in the architecture of behavior? This power of limits that will guide us and instruct us and teach us and shape us. In those limits lie freedom and accountability. And for the executive, for all of us, successful stewardship. So it's sort of like, give us humans a break. Give us some structure. This isn't prison. This is guidance. Give us some guidance so that we can do what we came to do. So this is the X-type matrix uninhabited. This is a very simple formulation of the matrix. By the time we end today, I will show you a more complex, let's say a more mature, a gentleman who was very mature in using this. We worked together for maybe 2 or 3 years, and you'll see a much more complex, but for him, effective formatting of the matrix that worked for him very well. But these are the basic ingredients. And we will go through a short tutorial in case some of you weren't here in November. Go ahead. Somebody wants to speak? No? Okay. Just say Gwen, and I'll know to stop. All right. So here it is inhabited. And we're going to walk through this. Not in detail. We had that detail in November, but enough to recall it for you. And I'm going to now, what I did, the difference between this page and this page is I've added some quadrants. I added something here and I added something in this blank space. Your annual plan on a single page. Actionable, actionable. Here it is in color to help us differentiate. See how things associate and go together. That's one of the very powerful aspects of using designed formats, not just a list, not just bullet points. All right, so I'm going to use this as a teaching template and just kind of walk you through. Here is why they call it the X-type matrix, because of that X you see, those 4 quadrants. And they're called A, B, C, D, okay? So the first quadrant is about high-level goals. If this were a GM, these goals would be different than a plant manager, or, for example, a departmental manager. For myself, I like to see 3 levels. I'm going to say 2 levels. I like to see the executive and his direct reports. If those direct reports then have, for example, a whole factory that they're responsible for, then I like to see it go down a 3rd level to the direct reports of the plant manager. Just using the factory venue as a good, simple way of seeing what the cascade is. If it's healthcare, then you know what your organizational structure is. It's people who have budget responsibility. And yet we're going to talk to the gentleman, several people who called and said, I'm not a manager. Sorry, who emailed and said, I'm not an executive. How do I use this? All right, I will tell you. The B quadrant is the projects, and those projects support the A quadrant through these cells and these dots. Then we move to the C quadrant, where we have named the targets we want to come out of those projects, and they get linked as well. In addition, we name the people who are going to be responsible, who are going to lead the projects. Where there's a black dot, it signifies that the name that you see in yellow is the leader of the project. So you have this kind of tight coordination between the resource, the outcome, the project that will create the outcome, and the metric. It's all there on a single page, as they say. I added a couple of things that I feel are fundamental. I added what's called the toolbox. I feel that you can't responsibly engage in the kind of driving and expectation that is built into the X-type matrix unless you have a toolbox. If you don't have a toolbox, then you're missing the how. People are going to use brainstorming, or they're going to try to figure out why things happen through the kind of brainstorming that's not about solutions, but are about the why, not the how. It's just not enough. You have to have a toolbox. And if you don't have one, then start building it. You need a problem solver. You need something on visuality. You need something to reduce time. Okay, that's lean. Visuality is about information, and problem solving is about causality. And whether you declare it or not, your company is about causality. Toyota has never published this. They've never said to you directly, Toyota is about causality, but it is. That's all Toyota is about. That's why it is so excellent. And the excellent companies go after causality, and they have a pathway, a known pathway. It's called a toolbox. So alongside of these metrics, when you work with me, I say, okay, name the tool. And if you don't have a toolbox, then let's start building it. You'll have a whole year of piloting tools, and that will have a very specific place in your X-type to do that deployment, to do the learning, to build the capability of your company, because that's what tools are for, to build your CPK, maybe even to build capacity. Who's going to teach it? If you don't have a training function or any kind of CI specialist or bridge, okay? So we're still in the C quadrant, but as you see, the C quadrant begins, that means this quadrant right here, the C quadrant begins to require you to be specific and to figure out how to do it in your organization. And then you talk about the D quadrant. Money made or money saved is one way to do it. In reality, this can get very specific. For example, if you are a supplier, you're going to be talking about a loaded hour. Okay, because you're not a profit center. And for another client of mine, for whom improvement time was very important, he wanted to see improvement time, the utilization of improvement time, which he had designated by policy. We requested, we don't often get it, that the ranking site executive will write an improvement time policy and actually require that it be piloted in order to find out why there is no time for improvement, and then to work through it until improvement time really has a place in the annual plan. It is a direct cost, and it is tracked. Anyway, we're going to link these up to the metrics, and now we're going to link up that money made or saved to the policy level. This is a middle, by the way, this is a middle metric. This is a middle X type. This is not a high level. This is a plant manager. It could be a departmental manager, because look at the policies: decrease material costs, decrease manufacturing overhead costs, decrease direct and indirect labor. That's pretty much a plant manager X type. This is very simple. Let me just see if anyone has any questions right now, because I'm going to move on to two cases. One is for at the start, the kind of stumble you can get yourself into. You can tie yourself into knots because you kind of miss something big about the matrix, and then something more advanced where I'll show you the more complex matrix and how a gentleman named Roy used it. I call him Russ here because it's a little bit, it's him and it's a little bit proprietary, but I took out a lot of the information. Let me see. Any questions for anyone?
Yeah, Gwendolyn,
Yes, please.
this is Mark Lascuto. The thing that strikes me too is when you move from the policy goals or priorities up to the projects, is how do you determine if there's enough critical mass of projects to get you to the results you're looking for? In other words, here you have decrease in direct and indirect costs, and you've got two activities. How, I mean, how do you know you've got enough activity going there, or is that something maybe you determine later on when you're not getting those metrics?
It's a really great question. At least I'm hearing it with the ears of someone who is waiting for that question and waiting to give this answer. I'm going to limit my response to 5 minutes. Robert, you're in charge of my time clock, okay? In 5 minutes, if I haven't changed the slide, something's wrong, okay?
Okay, all right.
So here's a couple of high-level points about the matrix. When you use this matrix, and I ask, and thank you for your question, Mark, really. I ask executives to do this solo. They can have a buddy who's a sounding board. That buddy is typically the person who's in charge of strategic improvement or CI, OPEX, whatever, because there usually is a very rich relationship between the ranking side executive and that person, because that person hears all of the heartache and all of the complaints and hears about what this executive wants to have happen instead. So that's a good person. And more than likely, that person is going to be asked by the executive to create his own X type. Maybe he's doing it right now. So you can make a decision. Set aside 2 months to just do this first part of the matrix. If you're a ranking side executive with the budget, in other words, you have the responsibility for spending that money and spending it wisely. You have to make a decision, not during the first month of figuring it out, but during the second month, because you won't be able to make the following distinction right off the bat. Is this going to be an improvement matrix or a maintenance matrix? Because the matrix is about saying yes to the few and wait to the many. That means it's about resources. If you don't have the resources, you don't have them. That means your matrix is going to align with the available resources. So the governance mark is more not the nature of the project, but can you resource the project? And if you only have resources for 1 or 2 projects, you won't be able to cover the waterfront. You won't be able to do that which you know must be done in order to achieve this goal, but you will be able to get started. This is the second piece. So you make the decision, is this about improvement or is it about maintenance? Is it about the maintenance activities? And I don't mean machine maintenance, I mean keeping what is in place and going. Keeping production going, keeping the schedule going, keeping your purchasing going. What kind of resources are needed? That requires your managers to start looking at their use of time. This is the cascading out. Looking at how they're deploying their own direct reports. Can I ask my direct reports to figure out a way to free up 15% of their time. Or maybe just 15 hours a month. Make it easy. Don't even think about percentages. I want you to find 15 hours for me. And during that time, you can spend the other, and it really isn't the other 85, it's the other 75, a little slosh of 10 hours. You following me? The other 75 hours, I'm looking at 100-hour total. The other 75 hours working on your stabilization maintenance issues. You're maintaining your current level of work, your current contribution. This is not an improvement contribution. This is your job. Can we add 15 hours, or can we derive 15 hours from that 100 and use that for improvement? And you give that as an assignment. I'd like to free up 15. They come back, they talk to you, and you say, you meet with the group and you say, you know what, it sounds like we can only find 10. Okay, let's start with 10. And the third piece is do it for a quarter only. Do it for 3 months after you publish the matrix. Make these projects and these metrics with a 3-month window, because you'll want to adjust your matrix. Your matrix is constantly teaching you about your strengths and about your resources. Another word for resources is your shortcomings. You can't afford it. You may want that new car, but you're going to drive this jalopy for a year, this clunker. And then we can talk about a BMW, but you're not going to get that right away. So though it's very important, you don't have to worry about it now, because you will find yourself cornered when you do the matrix. It's constantly teaching you. You won't be able to fit it.
You have 2 questions in the chat box from Deb Gregson and Rodolfo Contreras.
Please.
Deb Gregson asks, what are the colored in circles versus open circles? That's the first question.
Okay, let me answer that. The dark circle means this person is leading the team. The dark circle means this person is leading the team, leading this project, leading the team on this project, leading the team on this project. Here we have one person leading this one and one person, and he also leads this one. The matrix can help you get clear on some things, but at some point, as you try to operationalize, you won't realize that a slight adjustment in your thinking is needed that will open the door. And so I call it an expert model, because it's very, very hard to know what your choices are until they're right in your face, to know what the barriers are until they're right in your face. So at the start, I want to give you an example of the kinds of innocent yet magnificent mistakes that are made at the beginning. I named to you the 3 main constructs of visual leadership. The OSIT at the top, which is my version of the house, which I think is much more deployment oriented and implementable, much. The second is the X-type matrix, and the third is the roadmap. Well, this gentleman, someone that I have been working with for about 3 years, decided to skip the X-type and go right from the OSIT to the roadmap, because the roadmap was friendly. You see it here. It tells you what the company is about, 10% productivity increase, and it tells you what the company-wide goals are. Oh, very nice. Improve in-process quality by 25%. And then it tells you what the departmental goals are and the methods and tools that will help. Very nice. And so he was given goals by his GM. They have 3 plants. He's in charge of improvement. And he's in charge of OPEX. He begins to use the roadmap. This is a kind of a teaching model that we use, superior forklifts. And he started separating it, his goals, his identification of projects into continuous improvement, strategic alignment, and daily management. And I just want to show you what happened. His next step was to name projects for continuous improvement and name the metrics. His second and third step was the same. And the list is a bit shorter because he got stuck. And that's when we had a talk. And we had a talk, really an activity, and he couldn't get any further, and he kept generating metrics. He said, I could measure this, and I could measure that, and I could measure this, and all of them were valid. And he said, what do I do? And I said, what you do is what you skipped over. You're trying to do a roadmap to communicate in a popular, easy to understand way when the decisions haven't been made yet about what you can resource. And also, whether or not you are mixing levels. I call them orders of magnitude. You have to be very, very careful of this. When you revert to something like this roadmap, lists, you have to make sure that the levels match. They're called orders of magnitude. That's just a handy way. It's a shorthand way of saying they have to match. For example, here's a level of a contradiction here. Streamline the operator level and on alert pilot in order to generate problem solving on the operator level. Forgive the typo. The next one, redesign Plant 3 daily meetings. We just jumped a level of magnitude. This is on a detail level, an operator level of magnitude, and this is a design. This is something that you deploy and you improve, but this is something that you create. So already you have this conflict. And so your metrics are going to be all over the place. Developed leader standard work in offices, another jump in order of magnitude. What I'm talking about here, an early mistake, is to simply make a list of what you want instead of doing the matrix. But in fact, pardon me, I hit the wrong button. The matrix is there for you to decide, where you want to deploy your resources. And if you go to this list here, the decisions have been skipped over. That's the hard part of the X type. It is to get this commonality, to get a horizontal and vertical fit between what you want to do, how you're going to do it, how you're going to measure it, and how you're going to deploy it through people. Those are the big issues of being an executive, an active executive. I'm not talking about what's it called? A figurehead. I'm talking about a person who is actually turning his vision into action. He's deploying his vision. It's called in the Japanese, deploying policy, because policy exists on a visionary level. For the Japanese, they think of it as that important. Policy is the premise. So it's the architecture of the X type that allows us to match the levels. So contemplate this. Who can argue with any of this? Highest quality, lowest cost, shortest lead time. That's a goal and a half. Wowzer. Just-in-time, continuous flow, tack time, pull system, judoka, stop and notify of abnormalities, separate man from machine. That's your hijunka. I'm sorry, that's your judoka. And then we have hijunka and standardized. Wow, this is just great. I want it. Give it to me. Okay? But watch what happens. This is a list. You want to make sense out of this list? Well, you can't talk sense out of it because there's so much you don't know. But as soon as you do this, as soon as we add architecture, now we understand. Now we understand relationship. Now we see orders of magnitude. We're using the physicality of the format to inform us. And I'm using the Toyota's house, the Toyota, so-called Toyota Temple. That's all we saw here was an undifferentiated list. There's no relationship. There's no hierarchy. Everything is on the same level. You've got mush. And that's what my friend was dealing with. And he was struggling. He said, I don't know how to make this go. And it's a very beautiful story because he started as a plant manager and then was promoted or demoted into an OPEX leader. He was supposed to start OPEX. And he's now in his third year. And he can't get away with anything this year. He got away with stuff last year, and it wasn't that he wasn't well-meaning. He's brilliant. He's got a heart of gold. He has terrific facilitation skills. He's just a terrific person. But he now, this year, had to face, how do I say no? This is what I want. How can I govern myself? And that's where the X-type came in. I'm hoping that I'm making this point to you, that it is the architecture of the X-type that allows you to make decisions. Here we see the difference between a bullet list, a list, and the temple. The difference between words and meaning, just there, so simple. In the X-type, you get even more interaction. So let me stop for a moment because I'm going to now move on to an advanced form in our last few minutes, in the last 10 minutes, and show you what happens when you do begin to get control of these elements. Let's see if there are any questions from anyone, please. And I haven't forgotten the question about deploying on the departmental level.
This is from the chat box. It says, any lean tool is also a means to help people grow. The X matrix is perfect to illustrate culture, much more than the roadmap.
Yes, and thank you for surfacing culture and surfacing the development of people. The X-type matrix is there. Remember, our second premise of the 4 premises of visual leadership is that leadership can be taught through these formats, through the power of the limits. Makes huge cultural difference. Thank you very much, sir. If you want to, or madam, if you want to comment on this further, just open the mic and say some more. Interrupt me because I'm going to go on a little bit. One of the features that your departmental managers need to grow in, that your direct reports need to grow in, is confidence. This makes a huge contribution to their ability to move forward and take risk. They feel confident. They can't feel confident until you get clear about what you want from them. We are always assessing our own success. And if you can help us see that we are making a contribution, if you can help us anchor that into a metric, then I can begin to measure myself and become not only more independent, but more intradependent. I can rely on you more because I understand me better. I understand what you want from me better. The cultural aspect of the X-type and all of these constructs is very important. Stop for any comment? Okay, we have just one slide left. We'll spend our time on this. And I expect there will be active questions here. Just ask, okay? A couple of people wrote and asked me for the kind of inside, the less blurry picture of this. This was done by a client of mine. I call him Russ up there. His name actually is Roy. He is extremely brilliant, and he's an engineer, and he loves tidy little boxes. These are his additions to the X-type. Remember, this first quadrant, the A, is for policy high-level goals. The B here is for projects. These are for our metrics that begin here. And these are for money made or money saved. Financial results is what he's calling them. But this is, and he worked, this was his third year of the matrix. He struggled the first year. His GM, I'm going to pull this out so I can turn this around a little bit for you. Pardon me just a moment, please. Here we go. Okay. His GM, this is also a VP, this guy is a VP of strategic improvement. He was responsible for, this is in Europe, for several plants, and one of them was in Romania, a new plant in Romania. But let me just show you this. Here's what Mark gave to him. He said, these are my goals. And they were doing iterations for quite a while, but this is where Mark landed. He said, I want to increase turnover. I want turnover created by a market-oriented approach. So he was talking to his other departments. And here's a big one. I want us to turn fixed costs into variable costs. More flexibility, less of a force feed. And the fourth one is increase the flexibility of production capacity. These are high level, and they're also sweeping, and they are his choice. This is what Mark wanted. This is the I want list. This is where it begins. Everything that comes after this point is I am now serving my GM. He's the servant leader, and I'm the servant of the leader. Now I'm going to make my boss's dreams come true. But I have to do it through the constraints of the matrix. I have to do it and still satisfy the matrix. You don't see the particulars here. I was not at liberty to share them with you. Just not, okay? But I want you to notice he has three main sets. What he did was he looked at his goals, and he has the limit. 8 is like one more than too many. 7 is okay, 8 is too much, but I couldn't talk him out of it. So he has the 8, and he noticed that certain projects held together. They made sense together. They were influencing each other. They created synergies. And so he divided them this way. He noticed that, and then he made it visual. This is a visual format to begin with. And you can see he carried it around. But this is a very mature understanding of the X type. I want to point out a few more things, and then I'll answer questions. If you don't ask me about them, I'll point out some more things. I want you to notice this in green. And I asked Roy, I said, Roy, what does all of this mean for your work as a VP of Strategic Improvement? What is your overriding goal for the year? Because Mark's not going to adopt it, but you need to know what is the outcome that you're driving at. How will you know when you're there? Not specifically project by project, but on the impact of your entire function. And he said, I want to reduce improvement complexity. We have all these tools, and we have these capabilities, and we have people who know how to do it, but it isn't as though we're using them meaningfully with a coherent enough focus for them to be the inevitable next step. There's too much complexity. There are too many decision points, not about causality, but about the deployment of changing that causality. This was a distillation, and a very helpful distillation of what he wanted. And I will say to those of you who are in the improvement profession, this is a worthy goal, a worthy goal. And he's using the X type to reach that goal, because the X type is a distillation. I want to now talk to the several people who wrote in and said, I'm not an executive. How do I use this? No one reports to me. And this will touch upon the departmental level. on the whatever you do, what you can do is work it backwards. You can start right here on the project and see what projects you are involved with, whether they're maintenance projects, keep going where you're going, it's a good direction, or improvement projects, this has to change. And distill backwards, find the macro level of what is the goal of this, so that you know why you're doing it and where it fits. You do this for yourself. You take your list of projects, which will be a list of things, all the teams you're serving on, and figure out what it means for the company. And maybe the company has some kind of a roadmap or some kind of a lean journey where it shows the road and it's talking about time and speed and information flow, whatever. And fit that in. Do that thinking. Do it quietly for yourself. And then look at this. Look at the metrics that you're given, what your goals are here. See how many of those, see how those projects are doing down here where we have your team leads, see how they're doing, qualify them in your own mind, and predict what the impact will be in money or in just goodness. And when you get this so that it begins to hold together and reveal another level of understanding for yourself about where the company is going, share it with your boss. Just say, hey boss, I've been thinking. I've been trying to find a way, and I heard about this tool, the X-type matrix, and I've kind of distilled things and made it look like this because I'm trying to understand the synergy. Now, I'm not saying that you should do this for a promotion, but if you want to start refining your thinking and then impress somebody, this is a way to do it. Let the discipline of the X-type matrix teach you how to think like a boss. So you're using it, but you're using it as your own course, and you're teaching yourself, and you are making choices between this way of expressing and that way of expressing, and how do I get this to fit underneath? This is an outstanding exercise. This is more than tying your shoelaces. This is really building the shoe. So that's what I want to say to you. If you don't, and I'm specifically talking to you, Henry, who sent me that beautiful email, that what you want to do to get promoted is you want to get ready to get promoted. You want to get your thinking ready. It isn't just a title, it's a responsibility. And there are going to be parts of it that are going to be new to you. But one thing is for sure, as soon as people start reporting to you, you're going to have to deal with, how do I say yes to the few and know why, and wait, not know, but wait to the many and know why. This will start training your mind. Okay. And by the way,
We have two questions. I don't know if you want to answer them now or just wait.
carry on. Yes.
Yeah. One is from, it says just iPhone 11, so I don't know what is the name.
Okay.
But it says, when it seems that the X matrix can have different labels on all four sides, do you recommend a specific set of labels, or do you encourage free-form labels and adapting it?
The only one that I think that you have a choice of flexibility on, I can find my little rotation button. Where the heck is my rotation button? Is the D quadrant. Huh. Oh, there it is. Is the D quadrant, where there's some flexibility, but this is impact. So this is, it might not be financial results, but it's got to be some form of impact. It's the effect. It is the benefit from all of that effort. So yes, you can change that, but I wouldn't change the others. But you know what, you could experiment on this and change the whole thing and just develop a new form. But to do the X-type, you need to have the cascade of outcome to action. This is the connection. Outcome, change the outcomes, get the outcomes through projects, through action. This is how I know we're succeeding. Okay, and the second question, please.
The second question is, these colors represents 3 priorities. That's a question. And instead, in order to classify the projects and link them to the priorities.
Yes, this was the way that Roy said, I need to hold on to this. I need to be consistent. I need to distill in the correct envelope. So he created these envelopes so that he knew he was, and sometimes you can't do this, but sometimes you can. What's interesting about taking it on is to try to do it and see where there is a necessary inconsistency or an unnecessary inconsistency. So it's a wonderful exercise. It's a wonderful exercise to see what the commonality is and to see the difference. We have this phrase, it's a prime principle of visuality. Prime 1 is to tell merely by looking. Prime 2 is to tell the difference merely by looking. So you can tell because it's an X-time matrix in a visual format, but now you can tell the difference. But the exercise of seeing that difference and understanding that difference is going to refine your own thinking. This is where the tool of teaching comes in. The X-type matrix is a premier tool for teaching you how to be an executive, and then to make you a better executive, or at least to raise questions of inconsistency and consistency that will help you understand your task. Being an executive is a big responsibility. And now, over the last 20 years, we've said you're not just responsible for profit, you're responsible for profit margin, and you're also responsible for the work culture. And you know what? You also got to be a nice guy and a nice lady. You can't be mean to me, at least not in front of my face. We've got all this stuff we've got to do. You need the quiet, sitting with yourself and figuring this out. It is so satisfying. Okay, a couple of things I might, if you stay a few moments later, I'll mention about this particular matrix because I think it's of great interest. I wanted to point out a few more things. One of the things that Roy did, AKA Russ, AKA Roy, is he put the percentage of completion here. Can you see that? It says 20%, okay? But he also brilliantly added, I gave him a great big hug for this one. He wanted to know how many times the teams have met. And wherever you see a space, it's when he came and coached the team. He would see them moving along. They would say, we need some help, or he would see their percentage points or whatever it was. He'd hear a cry for help. And the space points are where he came in and coached the teams. Okay, where he let them pull. He watched this. He let them pull. Over here on the team leaders, he wanted to know how much time they would have to spend based on the full time equivalency, the FTE, if you can see that here. You see that there? He wanted to know how am I resourcing it? How much time will it take? And I want to make this very clear. This is not his assessment. This is from the leader themselves saying, this is what it will take me. And this also changed. If the leader said, you know what, I'm wrong. This is taking me twice as much time. This is eating me alive. You're going to have to give up on one of my other priorities if you want me to keep on as a member of this team. So this was again, the deployment of resources, the use of resources is a governance factor for the X-type matrix. Okay, a couple of other things over here. I've lost my little wiggly thing again, my rotating thing. Yeah, here we go. Over here, Roy also included for here, achieved halfway and just started. So he really is making this on a single page. And here he put the project start and the project end. His anticipation is here. So he made this work for him. And here, can you see priority 1, priority 2, priority 3? These are additions that Roy made to his X-type, and they served him very, very well. He used this as his plan, and he measured himself against it, and he made a tremendous contribution to the GM's goal and to his own personal growth. He's now a plant manager in another company, but this greatly qualified him for it. He was hungry for knowledge, and he had a certain amount of bravery. He had a very, very big ego, but somehow or other it didn't get in the way of his learning. I think that was part of his kind of internal greed. It was beautiful greed. He wanted to know. He wanted to learn. And so this was a challenge for him that he met and then really mastered. I want to thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to ask questions as long as anybody has them. Just open your mic and ask me questions.
First, my question is around, at the beginning, you said that the matrix we need to make a decision about the matrix being either about maintenance or improvement. So I'm
the first one about the what? What was the
either about the matrix being about maintenance or improvement,
Yes.
right? So I work with IT leaders, and I'm working with the highest level IT area to take our goals and our all of our projects and look at it in this type of a format.
Yeah.
But in the IT world, we have both. We have maintenance around things like currency of systems or applications that has to happen. But we also have improvement areas where we want to either get better at how quickly we work, how quick we can recover after a failure, those types of improvement items as well. How do we reconcile that? Now, I can tell you it's interesting because as I've been trying to do this without that thought in mind, I actually color coded them based on those two sides.
Good.
So, okay.
You can do that.
Okay.
It's very, very hard to see what improvement is costing you because it will be a moving target until you get until the organization gets masterful about causality and about improvement projects and about their design projects. It gets very difficult to predict what are the resources because there's so many barriers in the system. So
right.
You certainly put them on there, but I would extract that improvement part and allow that to behave and watch that behave in a very dynamic way as it will, so that you're not thrown by saying, oh, you're messing up my matrix.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Did I give you an answer for that? Okay, good.
Yeah, I think so. We don't use, RD doesn't use financial results. So I think
it might be time to market. That's fine.
Yeah, that's more what we're kind of thinking.
Go ahead. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Seeing someone else kind of and validating that I'm not completely going off the rails by thinking if I color code things, that will help to be able to visually see it a lot better. That was very helpful for me. But the idea of thinking more along of understanding it in that sense of, this is something you brought up last time, the financial result. We don't often think that way. We're trying to get that way with our IT organization, but we don't think that way. And kind of hearing some of the things you said, there's some ideas I may take back to help with that. So that was at least 2 things.
Very good. Thank you. I do have to add, you might, if you're growing that part of your organization, simply keep track right here of the number of problems and the impact of those problems. So you may have silver bullet problems, they just need a technical solution, or you may have complex, chronic, costly problems. You can use that down here. You can make, this is the flexible part. What this has to be, your GM or your boss may want financial outcomes, but for you, you can have the kinds of outcomes that will help you understand the health of your organization and the impact of your leadership. So don't be shy to do that. I want you to notice they can go deep. Okay?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is that Cynthia who is talking?
No, it's Teresa.
Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
Someone else, please.
All right, Gwendolyn. No, I've come in because I know that Doug Kohlberg is twisting your arm to come give us a presentation down in San Antonio. So
Yes, good.
what I learned out of your X Matrix that I'd never thought of using it for is to track the team meetings and basically using it as a project management tool. I've always done that separately, and I thought it was a smart idea to include it all into one document.
Yes, very good. Thank you. Who are you, sir?
I'm Mark DeKivett.
Hello, Mr. DeKibbit. Thank you for your comment. All right. Let's take the questions in the chat box or just come to the mic and ask your questions. Go ahead, Robert, please.
Yeah, one of the questions or comments says, is from Baidesh Subram. I don't want to say the name incorrectly, so I won't.
Yes.
Learning the critically for alignment and using the X matrix to develop my engineers.
To give them that assignment. Excellent. Excellent. Give them that assignment and you'll just see them break apart, but make them do it alone. It's the thinking. It's the not having the answers. There's actually a type of teaching which is called teaching without answers. What happens as a result is you develop people's critical thinking when they didn't even know that they were allowed to do that, to question the fundamentals and to do this other thing, which is great, that comes out of when you're really facing a conundrum. You can't find an answer, and that's flipping. If you can help your people learn to flip it, they'll have new vistas open before them. It's a part of critical thinking, and in some societies, it is not cultivated. It's not even named in the curriculum. Thank you. Go ahead, Robert, please.
The second one is from Deb Gregson. It is learn options to adapt for own need. Row is addition of percent complete, start and thinking of what to pull from A3s for this to be executive summary. And she said, story in a cubicle space, unable to talk out loud.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I never thought of that. Thank you for educating me, of course. How would you do that with the A3? I'm not quite sure. So you're pulling goals from the A3. I have only seen A3 done well, to my liking, once. And that is using it as a developmental tool rather than a problem-solving tool. But maybe you have better luck on it than I. I have not seen that tool used properly very often. Thank you for your comment.
And let's wrap up with a few words about Russ, aka Roy, and the work of his OPEX team.
This is Roy. And this is the day that we taught the OSIT. They did a really good job. This is Mark. And this is the toolbox. And then on the day that we taught the X type, Mark asked Roy, he said, I gotta, just listen to me, okay? This is what I'm thinking. And they just started. They started immediately. And it helped tremendously. Just want to kind of show you this in action. Mark is getting involved. He's an executive GM. He's very involved with his team. And there's Roy working on his own X type, trying to create an understanding of what his outcomes are. They were a very, very visual team. We taught operator-led visuality there first. They opened, I think, 5 of the 10 doorways, which already put them in on a very dynamic journey to excellence. This gentleman, he's an operator. He's an operator, and he was asked to join this team, and his contribution was incredible. Here's some more of their. What they're using here is a laminated map. They're just beginning to use it here, a laminated map of their factory, showing them where they've deployed. They haven't put the color coding on here yet, but where standard work has started, where it has not started, which is blue, where it started, which is red, halfway there, yellow, and then green. Because they had many of these in so many of these initiatives: supervisor standard work for operators, engineering errors, which they had a methodology for, and visuality, which is work that makes sense. So this was a very, very important mechanism, using the maps and making it physical. Here you can see the criteria here from blue to green. Our field is workplace visuality, the visual workplace, the technologies, the principles and practices of the visual workplace. Visual leadership is one aspect of it, and a powerful one. We wish you a good journey and good success. And thank you very much. Robert, thank you very much. Maybe,
You're welcome.
yes, I'd love to see you, Robert. Yeah,
I have my camera on. I don't know if you can see me.
I can see you.
Yeah. Hello.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Robert. Okay, hasta luego. It's Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.